this is Gina. Today I want to show you how to make a cute little necklace with a deep sea jewels treasure bag. However, this as always is a techniques video. You can follow along to draw inspiration, find something similar in your own stash, and make the same thing. So do not feel left out if you do not have the treasure bag. These are fairly common sized beads, and the technique is always adaptable to something you have in your stash. So let's go ahead and look at this a little closer. This is what the focal looks like, and let's see what it takes to make this. Okay, for this project today, we will be using some of the things found in the Deep Sea Jewels treasure bag. However, I will have all of these things available online in my store in a couple weeks. These are already available, but I will have some pendants like this one available very soon too. So just check a couple of times if you really like this design. So what we're going to be using is a 4x6 glass rice bead. We're going to be using some 3x4 rondelles, or 4x3, excuse me, rondelles. We will be using some 11/0 Toho seed beads, and this is a galvanized permanent finish aluminum. And we will be using 4 crimp tubes, and these are size 2 crimp tubes. We will be using a couple of pieces of soft flex beading wire, and this is medium size, and these are the measurements here. It is a 0.019 inch or 0.48 millimeter, just so that you have a reference on what I'm using. And then we will be using one piece I have cut about 20 inches long. I'm going to make around an 18-inch necklace. That's why I'm putting an extender, because I may need a little bit extra if I don't have enough length. So I'm going to make it at least 16 inches long, maybe 17, and then add an extender. So if you want to cut more wire, then you can. I've also cut a 6-inch piece of the soft flex beading wire. We'll be using this pendant, and I will have some of these, like I said, online pretty soon. And let's go ahead and get started with this project. Okay, so we're going to start this project by centering your pendant onto both of the pieces of wire you've cut. So you've got a 20-inch piece and you've got a 6-inch piece of wire. On your bail, you have a hole on the top and you have a hole underneath it. I'll get you a little closer so you can see what I'm talking about. We are going to run the long wire through this bottom hole and the short wire through this top hole. So let me back off a little here, and I'm going to grab the long wire and I'm going to put it through the bottom hole that I just showed you. And then I'm going to grab the short wire and I'm going to put it through the top hole on the bail. Now I'm just going to kind of tentatively center this by putting the ends of the wire together and then just pulling it down to the center. And then I will do the same with the middle wire here. It's not going to stay perfect, but we want it somewhat centered so that we can kind of keep both ends the same through this process. Okay, so once you have centered your wire on there, then you're going to pick up your long wire, one end of your long wire, and you're going to pick up a rice bead and an 11/0. Then you're going to do that on the other side of the pendant too. So pick up a rice bead, left hand is worthless, sorry. So let's do that rice bead and an 11/0 on this side and drop it down. Then we're going to do a rice bead and an 11/0 on both sides of the short wire. And then center it somewhat again. Push it all together. And then you're going to pick up a rice bead on the long side of the wire, one of the long wires. Bring it down to the length of the short wire, and go ahead and put the short wire into that bead also. So I've just slid it down and I have it on both wires now. I'm going to slide it down to those beads. And then I'm going to pick up a rice bead on the other long wire and do the same thing. Bring it down to the length of the shorter wire and put the shorter wire in. Pull it down. And then at this point, I have to center my wires nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the ends of the long wires together, and I'm just going to pull on my centerpiece and make sure that I get this nice and centered. You can move your beads down, make sure that everything is centered well. Then bring your short wire back into the middle so that it's not crossing the long wire. Come on, you. Come here. Okay. And then grab both ends of that and center it. The short wire doesn't have to be centered perfectly as far as the length on the ends because you're going to cut it off. But you want it to be somewhat centered. Then we are going to push these beads in. We're going to hold on to all the beads. We're going to grab our center wire and we're going to pull on both sides. This is going to kind of bring it all up into a V, and it should bring your beads into the center without showing a bunch of slack of wire. So you're just going to pull on your wires a little bit until everything's very tight together. Come on, cooperate. Push your beads in, and then one more time I'm going to grab the short wire and pull it towards the center and up, because that is what makes the V shape. Come on, you, stay. What did I use? I'm gonna make sure I have my medium and not my fine, because this should be staying pretty nicely for me. All right, I finally got it. Just takes a little manipulation. All right, so as you can see, I have a nice little shape here. You're going to see a tiny bit of wire between the 11-0 and the rice bead on the lower wire. That's okay. On my camera, you probably see it pretty well because it is really magnified, but to the naked eye, it's not bad. It looks fine. So now that you have these wires centered pretty well, you're going to grab a crimp tube and you're going to slide it again on one of the long wires first and then onto the shorter wire. So just bring the crimp tube down on both wires and then do the same thing on the other side. Bring it down to the shorter wire. Just like this. Now I'm going to arrange it one more time, just nicely, so that I can crimp this, and then once I get one side crimped, then I can tighten everything really nicely. So I want to just make sure that my middle wires, or my short wire, is towards the inside and my long wire is towards the outside. Push it together as much as I can at this point, and then I'm going to use the second divot in my crimp tool, and I'm going to create a fold in this crimp bead, and then we will be secure. So in the second divot, I'm going to place the crinkly side of the crimping tool. So you'll see there's a round side and a crinkly side. I want that towards the back of my necklace. So I am going to make sure that that's down towards my bead mat. I'm going to pull on my wires a little, kind of tighten everything, and push against that bead a little, and then I'm going to crimp. So I have squeezed my crimping tool, and now this is what I have. A little fold. Now I'm going to put it the crimp tube into the crimp tool again, making sure those little tubes on either side of that fold touch the crimp tool, and I'm going to squeeze again. Now I have a very nice, neat, secure crimp. But you can see my middle portion has kind of come apart again. So at this point, take your shorter wire and pull it towards the middle as tight as you can. Then take the outer wire and pull it as tight as you can. Get everything arranged really nicely so that you don't have a bunch of slack, wire showing, all that kind of stuff. You want to pull the shorter one towards the middle so that it creates this V shape. And then you're going to grab your crimp tool and do the same thing we did on the other side. I'm going to pull on this wire and I'm just going to crimp. Now I'm going to turn it sideways and finish my crimp just like I showed you on the other side. And now my centerpiece is completely secure. It's not hard, it's just a little fidgety. You just kind of keep working with it so that you end up with something that looks like this. Let's get close so you can see exactly what I've got, just like that. Now, I'm going to back off a little bit. I'm going to grab my flush cutter, and on the flat side, I'm going to bring it down towards the crimp tube on my shortest wire. I'm going to make sure that I'm as close to that crimp tube as I can. I'm going to pull on the short wire, kind of push down and cut so that I don't have any wire next to that crimp tube. I've cut it very, very short. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, making sure I get a very close cut. Just like that. Now we've reduced down to one wire to work with on either side, and I'm going to see how off center I was. Not too much. I have a little bit extra on this one side, so I'm going to cut it down. And now I have two even wires, and I can start beading the top portion of my necklace. And I'm just going to do a very simple pattern. I will show you, and then we will we'll go off camera and finish up the pattern. So I'm going to do, I think I'm going to do 3 of my rice beads. And an 11-0, and then a blue rondelle, and then an 11-0. And then I'll do 3 rice beads again. Actually, to make sure I have enough rice beads, which I should, but I'm just going to make sure. I think I'll do 3 blue ones with 11-0s in between them. So I'm going to do 3 rondelles and 3 11-0s. And then I'll do 3 rice beads, and I'm just going to repeat that till I get towards the end of my wire. Once I've done that, I'll do the other side. I'll come back and show you exactly what I've got, and we will end the necklace. Okay, so now I have finished beading along the top half of my necklace, and what I have done is I have done 6 sets of the green rice beads and 5 sets of the rondelles, the 4x3 rondelles with 11-0 on either side of them. This turns out to be a 16-inch necklace. Now, the reason that it's a little shorter than I anticipated is that it takes up a little bit of room on the bottom here. Doing the design that we did, I didn't allow for that. And I also need at least 1.5 inches up top here to comfortably be able to crimp. So if you want to make a longer necklace, you need to cut a longer piece of wire to start with, probably 24 inches, something like that. Give yourself plenty of room depending on how long you want your necklace to be. This is fine because I'm going to make an extender, and instead of putting a bunch of jump rings together, I've found a piece of chain, and I've just hooked one of my bigger jump rings on the one end of it, and then I'm going to go ahead and hook another one on the other end. So all you have to do is find the opening of your jump ring. My opening is here, and I am just going to hold on to it with one of my pliers, and then I'm going to grab with another pair and twist it open. I'm going to put it onto my chain. Make sure the links of your chain are shut nice and tightly, and then close this jump ring, twisting it back and making sure that it's very tightly closed. Or you can use a closed jump ring for this part and open your link and put it on. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take one end and clip it off on this necklace to make sure that as I work, I don't drop all my beads off the other side. Then I am going to grab a crimp tube and I'm going to put it onto my wire here. Then I'm going to grab my jump ring, make sure again that it's very tightly closed. This side seems to be closed better. And through the bigger jump ring on one of the ends, because I've got two big jump rings, one on either side, I am just going to put my wire through there. And then I am going to go back through the crimp tube here with the wire. Now, I don't think I'm going to be able to push through this first bead here. Let's see if I can. If I can, I'll do it, but I don't think I will. So I'm just going to kind of push my crimp tube up so that I can get my wire through. I'm going to find the stable side of the loop and hold on to it, and then I will grab the short wire and pull on it and draw this down. This is keeping no slack from getting all the way down my necklace. I'm making sure my necklace is tight. When you hold on to that stable side, you can keep everything nice and tight. So that's what I have done. I make sure that I have a nice size loop so that my jump ring can move around. That might be a little bit too big, so I'm going to pull it down just a little bit more. Hold on to the stable side. Pull that down, and then I'm going to grab my crimping tool. I'm going to arrange my wires so they're next to each other and not crossing each other inside the crimp tube. And then, make sure I don't have any slack here. And then I'm going to go ahead and place my crimp tool on again in that first divot and squeeze. And then turn it sideways into the second divot, or the one closest to the handle. The first one is closest to the handle, the second one is towards the tip, and squeeze again. Now I have a nice tight crimp. I'm going to get very close with my end cutters, pull on this wire, and cut it down. Now a lot of times if you can go through that first bead, you can hide that wire differently, but because I can't, that's the way I have done it, and it'll work out just fine. There's no pokies, there's no excess, it looks fine. Then we're going to do the other side basically the same way, except for we're just going to put on our lobster claw. So I'm going to drop down my crimp tube, and then I'm going to make sure, see, this has a jump ring on it also, so I'm going to make sure that the jump ring is closed tightly. And then I'll go through that jump ring. And then I'll go back through the crimp tube. Again, move the crimp tube up a little bit so that I can get through it. Generally, I leave myself a little bit more wire. Don't know why I decided to cut this one so short, but I did, so I'm dealing with it. And then once I get it through, like this, come here, get through. I'll hold on to that short wire, and I'm going to have to use this again. And then I'll hold making sure that there's no slack in my wire in my beads. I'll hold on close to where the stable side of that loop is and just pull this down until I get the size loop that I want around my jump ring. And I'll just look at my other loop and make sure they're about the same size. And then once I have that, then I can arrange my wire inside that little crimp tube. Make sure it's next to itself properly, laying parallel in there. And then I will put it in the second divot and crimp, turn it sideways, put it in the first divot on the crimp tool and squeeze. And now I can again cut this very short by placing my flush cutters as close to that little crimp tube as I can, pulling on the wire and then cutting. And now I have an extender, and this extender is rather long. I think I cut it about 2 inches, but it allows for a lot of adjustment here. You can make it shorter, you can make it longer, you can make it any way you'd like. I'll probably cut that down a little bit. It's a little long, but like I said, it allows for a lot of room for adjustment. Since this is a 16-inch necklace, 16-inch necklace is considered small, so, and an 18 about medium, a 20 larger, so you will want to judge how big you want yours to be by those measurements, and this is what it turns out to look like. I think it's really pretty. Let me get it in here so you can see it a little better. I want you to be able to see the focal area nicely. So let's take a peek at it. That's what that looks like. It turns out really, really pretty. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please consider subscribing to my channel, hitting the like button for me, and perhaps even the notification bell so that next time I post a video, we can make another piece of jewelry together. Thanks a lot. I truly appreciate it, and see you next time. Bye-bye.